Hey, family, welcome to episode 16 of My Enrolled Agent Career. In tonight's episode, we're going to keep things on the East Coast. As a matter of fact, we're going to stay right in North Carolina. My special guest on this evening also has a background in real estate, but I'm excited for her to come on and share her story from looking at real estate, participating as an investor, realtor, while being an EA. And in addition to that, this guest not only is an EA, will soon be congratulating her on becoming a CPA as well. So I would like to introduce to some of you and present to others one of my tax sisters, Karitsa Kerns.
Hello, hello.
Hey, Karitsa, thank you for joining me on tonight. It's my pleasure to have you. One of the things I always harp on is making sure that you have community, people that, keep you balanced, grounded, tell you to get your butt up when it's time to get up. And you are definitely one of those people for me. So I appreciate you giving a little bit of insight to what we have with everybody else.
Yeah. Look, thank you for having me. And likewise, you definitely pulled me uh together when needed.
That's what we're here for. Iron sharpens iron. Before I get too chit chatty, because like I said, you all, this is my real tax sister. So there's a problem, an issue. If y'all are getting on my nerves, so I'm gonna get right to the interview questions. So I don't forget about the listeners. The first thing that I ask everybody who joins me on the show is how did you find out about the enrolled agent credential? And then what made you decide to sit for the exam?
It's so funny you asked that because I was thinking about that the other day. I wanted to be a CPA since like high school. Fast forward, life happens and everything. I go back to school, I get my master's in accounting and financial management with a concentration in certified public accounting. And the I initially thought that I'm gonna just knock these exams out, and be done with it. Well, it wasn't quite that easy. And I was like, this can't be what, all these people are excited about and doing when they're talking about doing taxes, things like that. I'm like, it doesn't make sense. And I had taken some continuing ed with the National Association of Tax Professionals, and the lady who was teaching the class, she was just smart as I don't know what. And when I looked at her bio, she was an EA. At the time, I had no idea what an EA was. And so after the class, I spoke to her and I was asking her about the enrolled agent. And I also asked her, well, does it make sense to become a certified public accountant or an enrolled agent? And she was biased. She said, I'm biased because I'm an enrolled agent, but you need to figure out what it is that you want to do. What do you like to do? What direction do you want to go in? I said, well, I realize that I like taxes, more than anything. She said, check out the enrolled agent. And so I did the research on the enrolled agent. I sat for the exams from like July to November, studied, passed all three of those, and absolutely loved it. Got my license. I've been an enrolled agent since 2018.
Wow. So I didn't realize that you were able to pass them all that fast.
Yeah. Yep. I started studying in July and finished the last one, I think, in November.
Well, kudos to you. Um, so I can absolutely understand her being biased. I always try to explain to people like it's just a different license. It opens up different doors. And we've had this discussion before. When I was in undergrad, they pushed getting 150 hours, getting the work experience, taking the CPA exam. And that's initially what I thought I wanted to do. Until I realized, I fell in love with tax. I was like, I don't want to pay for this exam that ain't got nothing to do with what
Mhm.
I want to do. Of course, we know it's revamped now, the exam is. But for you, after passing the EA exam successfully that quickly, why this many years later would you decide to go back and take the CPA exam?
It was a personal goal. So it's like once I got the EA exam, I went through the National Association of Enrolled Agents, the NTPI fellow program. I did that. I did the Certified Tax Coach program, completed that. And there was still this part of me that was tugging at the CPA exam. And it was like, I really don't have anything major to do right now. My youngest son is, he's self sufficient, graduating soon. He graduated from high school last year in 2024. And so I was like, I really don't have, much holding me back. So it was more of a personal goal because after completing my master's, and getting the required hours and everything, the only thing left to do was to pass the exam. So I was like, since I'm this close, might as well, go ahead and get it. And even though it was a personal goal, there's no denying that the CPA is the most recognized designation, in the field of tax and accounting. Everybody asks
Mhm.
for a CPA and they really don't understand the value that an enrolled agent brings. And I think that's why like your work is so important, bringing awareness to, the enrolled agent designation, because I didn't know that that was even an option when I came out of college.
Look at you throwing it back at me. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I had an earlier guest that told me when God tells you to do something, do it and do it without hesitation.
Right.
And I kind of dragged my feet on this because, like, yeah, I get it. A lot of people don't know about it. But I was like, God, like, how am I going to market this? Like, college students, people aren't looking at me. And somebody shared a clip recently on LinkedIn, and a college student commented, they were like, they put Miss. And I was like, Jesus, I'm not that much older than you. But they put Miss Timalyn was a great person to explain this. I didn't even know what an enrolled agent was before this. And I was like,
Hmm.
okay,
Yep.
uh, I keep going.
And honestly, if I had known about the enrolled agent designation and the options that you had with that, I don't know if I would have went back to school and got my master's. I probably would have got my bachelor's, but to do the master's in accounting and financial management, because you really don't need a degree to understand taxes. You need to understand the tax law, and the IRS calls enrolled agents America's tax experts. And that's what I absolutely love.
Yeah, I think it's perspective too. And kind of like, I kudos to that instructor who actually asked you. Of course, she
Mhm.
was biased. Like I said, we all are a little bit.
Right.
But she asked you like, what do you want to do? And I'll go ahead and say congratulations. I know we're waiting on official paperwork, but you all, Karitsa has successfully passed all four parts of the CPA exam. So very soon, hopefully by the time this episode airs, you'll have that CPA behind your name. But I know all of your hard work and studying for that's not going to be in vain. Like I said, it just opens up different doors than the EA
Yeah,
designation does.
it
So
does.
I'm excited to see what doors those open up for you and which ones you decide to go through because you have options. So
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
so when you were like, I realize I like tax more, I'm gonna go for the EA designation first. At that time, did you have tax experience working with someone else, or did you pass the exam after like you started a firm? Like what was that journey like with you getting tax experience?
With I had like a mentor, and I tried working at one of the local firms, and it just didn't go well.
Mm.
And I basically jumped out there with both feet, and I was taking continuing ed every opportunity I got. So I hired some coaches, got with some, coaching programs that taught tax prep and, different types of forms. And I took almost every class at the National Association of Tax Professionals that they offered. I kept my membership there, and I took CE after CE after CE, and just read like the publications and just try to understand. Because a lot of people think taxes is just data entry, and some people may do just data entry, but when you are, one of the most common things I heard was, I want to pay, less in taxes. My tax bill is too high, which is what got me into the tax planning side. But if you understand what you're doing and how things are supposed to flow from one form to the next, and the impact that it's supposed to have on that bottom line, you know that you're doing more than data entry. So I love understanding the tax law and how it's supposed to be applied and who qualifies for what and when.
I got you. Yeah, and you all didn't pay Chris to say this either. I'm just pointing out that you said you did have a mentor.
Hmm.
I think especially now with like internet's amazing, technology is great till it's not. But sometimes it's easy to feel like you are on an island
Hmm.
and that you can do everything yourself. Um, so like mentorship and community is
Right.
huge for me because I wouldn't have been able to get where I'm at as quick as I did if I didn't have somebody to follow.
Absolutely.
Like somebody who had done in some of the things that I'm doing, right? But then I wouldn't be able to do this America's Favorite EA stuff with like you or Lysandra to be like, someone you got it, or
Yeah.
someone you doing too much.
And,
Like,
and look, not to throw this back on you, but there were times I didn't think that you really realize how, valuable you are to the tax community. Because I remember before I signed up for one program, I was going through, like, I think I got like free access for a certain amount of time or something like that. And I saw you comment on one of the videos, and I reached out to you and I was like, hey, what is this? What is this program like? And after we had maybe two or three conversations, I was like, this girl know her stuff. Like, I was like, no, she's not your average. She knows her stuff. So that's when I realized, I was like, yeah, you really have to connect with people who, one, take the business serious, take tax law serious, and understand, how important staying up to date in tax law and education, and just having that support. Like, it's needed, it's necessary.
yeah, and again, thank you. This isn't the Give Timlin Flowers show, but I appreciate you. I'm
It's
learning to take them.
the truth. Look, it's part of my story.
I'm learning to take them for sure. But that's another like invaluable part of community and just realizing like you can't do it alone. There have been some things like as you've had different niches along the way, maybe like you're not spoon feeding me anything, but I'm like, oh shoot, I messed that up. I need to go do some research because Karitsa said I could have just done this form and I'm over here messing up and now I gotta have a discussion with the client. So yeah, I you can't put a price tag on
Yeah,
having the people that are close to you that can understand like the struggles of trying to grow the business, marketing. I'm like, Karitsa, I'm going underground for 30 days. Like, I'm sick
yeah.
of it. So, when you were going out and looking for continuing education, so this is going to be a multi part question because
Hmm.
the process might be different. You said you went to NATP for continuing education. There are a lot of scammers on the internet,
Hmm.
whether they're trying to teach tax professionals, the taxpayer. What criteria are you looking to be met when you're looking for continuing education?
Um, One, it's not so much, designations. I think showing that you study and, pass the test and things like that, that's important along the journey. And it kind of
Mm,
shows how committed you are to your craft. You're becoming an expert and licensed and certified at your craft. But I'm a people watcher. So I watch what you say and how you say it on the internet. Are you sharing factual information or are you trying to go viral? Because one of the things that, we talk about all the time is like people really are drawn to like lifestyle marketing and, the what you call it, the clickbait posts and things like that get you quick results. But we're sitting back like it doesn't quite work like that. Like it's so much more to it. So I look for people who are not just trying to get clicks and views and stuff, but who's actually sharing factual information according to the tax law.
Yeah, that's good. Especially so we connected because if I remember the story right, you told me we were actually connected before I realized we were connected.
Mm-hmm.
You're like,
Yeah,
oh, we're connected on Instagram. I was like, no, we're not.
yeah.
I was like, no, we're not.
I was following you.
You were like, yeah, I sent you, and I was like, oh shoot. And then like you mentioned, like you asked me about a certain program. Um, with that, I think it's important for people to educate themselves before they latch on to people as well.
Right.
Because we connected pre-COVID, and during that COVID era, what a time to be alive because we were finding out about tax updates the same time the taxpayer was finding out about tax updates, and they're looking to us for answers. But you had influencers who are out here sharing tax interpretation before the IRS has even really interpreted it, and it was just
Exactly.
crazy.
And it's happening now.
It is with this big beautiful bill. I was like, because ain't no way some of y'all folks that can't even explain to me where box 2 of the W-2 goes read through that bill and you're making content now.
Right.
Make it make sense.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you, because I think people don't remember always to look at character
Right.
as well. Especially like you said with the lifestyle content. Every business owner has their seasons. I mean, I'm doing all right, but I'm not rich off of making content
Right.
about that. This is for people that have something I didn't have to know what's possible, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So when you're looking at character and who, like you said, knows their stuff when it comes to continuing education, is that the same kind of guideline that you use when you're looking for a mentor or a community?
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure.
And I guess, how do you, in this online space, put out fillers? Because like you said, you were like, I was following you, but like we weren't talking. So like, I guess, what does that people watching the stage look like? And I'm not saying I don't people watch, because we have a DM thread. So just for people, and the reason I'm asking it like this, being married has definitely taught me that everybody doesn't learn the same way. Everybody doesn't connect with people the same way. So that's why I'm asking it in that manner, because sometimes people watch and they're lurking,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they're just looking to copy.
Right.
Um, but how do you, I don't want to say people watching per se, but how do you decide whether or not it's time to reach out or move on?
Um, yeah,
Because you
so
didn't know me can of paint.
I think lurking and people watching to gather information is like, I mean, lurking to copy and people watching to gather information is two different things. Like, I don't watch people to copy. And if I watch you, 9 times out of 10, you inspire me in some, way or another. So it's just like, if you feel like that person holds the same values that you do, they you have things in common. You have things that you're looking for, whether it's like I say the values, the facts, or there is something that you connect with that person. And if there's something that I don't connect with, I disconnect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's important to know who you are, for
Yeah, you
sure.
got to know who you are first, because it's easy to get caught up in the hype.
Yeah. Yes. I didn't pay her to say that, you all. The people in my actual mentorship group, because I'm like, you have to know who you are, who
Mm-hmm.
you want to serve, and like what your purpose is. Otherwise, I said, y'all be out here like the used car lot, the little blob thing that's out there just flailing. Man. Okay,
And
preach, Chris.
been there too. I felt like that.
Yeah, because I mean, there are certain things that people will connect onto, and then there are certain things that will just turn them off. Like, you know me well enough, like if I'm going through it and I feel like last year I was really going through it, I was like, hey Chris, I need you to pray with me. Like
Mm-hmm.
some stuff got to shake. Like you can't
Right,
go to everybody with that. So
right,
it definitely has to be certain core values.
right.
Um I'm going to backtrack a little bit. So you mentioned your youngest son getting ready to graduate and you're like, hey, I can revisit the CPA thing. Prior to that, how did you balance having him at home while you were building your firm?
Whew, I don't know what they say. Balance, that's a lie. Like, you don't really balance. It's more of a juggling act. Like I felt like
Mhm.
a lot of times, like it's a juggling act. Getting up super early, and at times dropping him off at school and coming home, like doing the important things first, and then you might have some calls in the afternoon, and things like that. It was more so, I wouldn't say balance, it was more of a juggling act.
Did you ever feel like you had things kind of, I would say smooth, because I'm not a good juggler. You give me, like, if we're talking about real life juggling, I can maybe get three things in there. But I know as a mom, business owner, you definitely had more than three. Did you ever feel like you were juggling on steady ground though? And how did you figure that out?
um I would say during the times where I was just juggling so much and things were crazy, I got the steady ground from like the help of my family. Like my mom would show up, do things for me. My sister, she would watch the kids. Well, my oldest was grown at this point by the time I started my business, but I would say you have to know when to ask for help, and you're going to drop some balls. You just got to decide which ball you're going to drop at this time and which ball you need to keep in the air, basically.
Hmm. I got you. Yeah, I don't think I'd ever heard this phrase before. One of the earlier episodes, I had Danny Lynn on here, and she said it's work life integration. And I was like, okay, I'm still that one because
It's
it does
a
for sure. So you're dealing with that. I heard you mention earlier, like how you got into the tax planning side.
Mhm.
When you first started as an EA and started your own firm, what services or service did you offer?
When I first got my EA, I got that in 2018, and I was just doing tax returns at the time. I don't think I started out with bookkeeping. That may have come, as a matter of fact, I may have had a few bookkeeping clients at the time, but you mentioned COVID. It was during the COVID era is when I realized that, people, real estate professionals, their businesses took off because the real estate market was booming. And just from speaking to different real estate professionals before COVID, they was like, I had this huge tax bill, and my tax professional, she doesn't return my calls throughout the year. She doesn't, give me tax strategies, things like that. And that's what made me look into like, tax planning, because it's not something that you do at tax time. Like I think some people were expecting miracles at tax time and say, oh, you qualify for this, you can do this, you can do that. But I tell people all the time, what you can do in April is very limited in comparison to what you can do the year before. That's why they call it proactive tax planning. But it was during COVID where I realized that a lot of people were really good at making money, but they really didn't understand how a business is supposed to work on the back end. They didn't understand the importance of bookkeeping, the accounting part. I tell people all the time, your financial reports basically determine what goes on your tax return. So if your financial reports are jacked up, your tax returns are going to be jacked up. So it's like that's when I really got passionate seeing, 45, $50,000 tax bills and more. That's when I really got passionate about tax planning and educating my clients and community on the proper way to run a business.
Understood. I didn't COVID just seems like a lifetime ago. When you said that, though, I was like, that was only 5 years ago. I feel like it's been longer than that.
It seems like it was forever ago and yesterday at the same time.
So, with tax planning, I know you are still in that lane, but you've kind of transitioned from who you were initially working with. When it comes to like figuring out who you want to work with, what was that journey like for you? Because I know, unfortunately, the tax industry for certain communities is kind of being promoted like an MLM,
Right,
right?
right,
And people are like, well, if you get your EA, like, you can represent people, you can charge $5,000 a client, but they don't understand what that actually means.
right.
So for you, how did you figure out, okay, this is who I want to start with, but now no, this is who I actually want to work with?
Yeah, when I first started, I was working with any and everybody who had a post who told me they wanted their tax returns filed. And
Amen.
with that, with that, you had hundreds of different personalities and different expectations and different challenges. And so I moved from just working with any and everybody to real estate professionals and investors primarily. And I did that. One, I'm a licensed real estate broker as well. So I was already connected to people who were in the, real estate industry. And then, I learned some things, about different personalities and mindsets, just trying to focus on this one particular industry. So I'm not saying that niche doesn't work and, focusing on one specific industry doesn't work, but you got different mindsets in every industry. And so from going from working with any and everybody to focusing on real estate, professionals, I'm now focused on um, what is it, high net worth business owners and individuals, those making multiple six and seven figures and above. A lot of people, you hear a lot of people say, oh, I need a CPA for this and I need a CPA for that, when technically you may not need a CPA, dealing in where you are in business. You may not need a CPA. You may just need a great bookkeeper and a tax preparer until you get to the point of needing a CPA and a tax strategist and things like that. And I had to identify like who those people were, what type of mindset do the people have that requires a CPA and a tax strategist. So those are established or rapidly growing and expanding business owners. They see value in having a CPA and tax strategist. They're not looking for the cheapest, they're looking for the best, the ones that's going to provide them a return on their investment. Like if I pay this lady five, six, seven, 10, $15,000, then I know I'm saving 30, 50, or $100,000. That's the mindset that they have.
I love that. And I just want to point out, you all, she is not self serving by saying you may not need a CPA. Remember, we just said she has passed all four parts of the
Right,
CPA exam. There are just different situations that call for a different professional.
right.
And go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I tell people all the time, it's levels to business. Some people think that if you get an LLC and collect a couple of dollars, you have a business. No, that still can be a hobby. So it's not so much what you do. I mean, it's not so much, the LLC and collecting some money that determines whether you have a business or not. It's what you do beyond that. Like, are your intentions are growing? Are you trying to make a profit and, things like
Mhm.
that. So it's levels to business.
Yeah, and you spoke to it there as well, but something you were mentioning about your clients, and I tell people this too, like when people are talking about figure out who you want to work with, that's not always an industry. Sometimes you can laser focus in on the mindset.
Right.
If you understand what's going on up here, you have half the burden of marketing done.
Right. Absolutely.
And saying
Absolutely.
somebody, go ahead.
I was gonna say it took me years to figure that out.
Yeah. It's not an easy journey because sometimes, especially going back to being on the internet, certain things can look shiny and appealing, and baby, they are not. They're
Right.
not. It's
Yeah.
not.
It's shiny and appealing on the internet, and then it's raggedy behind the scenes.
Man, listen, I have to remember that we are on the podcast and not in the DMs because
Right.
they're about to kick me off
Yes, ma'am.
Spotify.
Yes,
Oh,
ma'am.
Lord Jesus. But no, in all seriousness, thank you for that because yes, when figuring out who we have to work with, we have to figure out what their mindset is so we can communicate with them. But then we also have to challenge ourselves to level up our own mindset to understand that we are more than capable of working with them.
I definitely had to do my own mindset work, and I had a fabulous coach who was great on mindset and peeling back the layers, and on top of reading I don't know how many books, because a lot of people try to make you feel guilty, or I ain't even gonna say a lot of people try to make you feel guilty. I think I felt guilty for when I was transitioning from, well, I can't work with any and everybody, but I got in this business to help people, but when people who don't get it and don't understand what you're trying to do and why, they will hold you back from growing because they don't want to grow or they don't understand, this side of the world. So you really have to pick and choose your battles, because you can try to help people who don't really want your help, or you can go in an environment where people value your expertise and your help, and are willing to invest. I saw a post, or I don't know if it was a post, I think it was a post or something on Instagram. Like, you can go in the dollar store and you can get a bottle of water for $1. But if you go to the airport, that bottle of water is $6. So it's not that the bottle of water changed, the environment changed.
Mm, yeah. And that goes not only to working with taxpayers and prospects, that goes with who you have in your community.
Absolutely.
Um, I like that Keisha Dawson Harris in a previous episode, she was saying they need to be able to like not just encourage you, but also be able to correct you. And she was like your slip is hanging, and I start laughing because I'm a pew baby. I said,
Yeah.
Keisha, these folks ain't gonna know what you talking about a slip hanging.
Uh-huh.
Um, but it's true because there are times I can speak personally where I've been down in like not in a group thread, not on my page, like a real friend, like I say, tax sister, you DM me and be like, I think you may even text me a couple of times. So I know I'm messed up. This came off the internet. But you be like, are you okay? Like your energy is just it's a little off. You're not where you supposed to
Yeah.
be. Just
Yeah.
making sure you good. Get it
Yeah.
together. But now I appreciate that because everybody doesn't have that.
Right. Right.
Everybody does not have that. And mindset can make and break any goal that you have, whether it's with running a firm, weight loss, anything.
For sure.
So it's very important. With tax planning, because with us being authorized before the IRS, we have the same authority as tax attorneys and CPAs to represent taxpayers. You mentioned the NTPI fellow program. We've had several people that have gone through that with NAEA, excuse me.
Mhm.
With all of that work, you've only mentioned tax planning. So, do you offer tax representation or any other tax services?
Yes, I had avoided tax resolution for quite some time. Like I'll take, clients here and there, but it was just like at the time, like I say, juggling everything, spending
Mm-hmm.
hours on the phone with the IRS, that just wasn't my thing. Like I just could not dedicate, hours on the phone with the IRS. But now that I'm not locked in a closet studying, now that I've gotten that goal, out of the way, I do enjoy tax resolution, not the sitting on the phone for hours with the IRS, but I do
Oh,
enjoy I
come
do
on.
enjoy helping my clients like reduce their tax bill, and that's whether through tax resolution or tax planning. Now, I will say tax planning is a little more challenging than tax resolution because a lot of people think they got it until they don't. It's like say it's like weight loss or just eating right, doing what you're supposed to do. Sometimes you really don't change your habits until you get a warning from the doctor. And so it's like once you get that official notice from the doctor, you're like, okay, I got to do better. Where tax planning, you're doing the exercising, you're doing the sleeping, you're doing the meditating, you're doing the eating right, you're doing all of that. You're doing the preventive and the proactive work. A lot of people don't like the preventive and the proactive work. They wait till they get the notice from the doctor, from the IRS, or whatever the case may be, and then they're like in a panic, like, oh, I gotta fix this. And so I can't
Mhm.
ignore, that side of it. Still, high earners have those types of tax problems. I think it was who was it? I want to say it was the lady who's the owner of Kaleidoscope hair products. Is it Judy? She's married to the brat. She said that she didn't even
Huh.
know about, like correct entities until she was making millions of dollars. And so I think about all the people who's making multiple six and seven figures who don't
Wow.
understand the importance of having a tax strategist. Implementing those proactive things so that you're not paying the IRS more than you have to. A lot of people think that just because you make a lot of money, oh, 35-40% ain't bad because I made, XYZ. But if the tax law is written so that you can avoid paying taxes, why not be proactive about it? And instead of giving the IRS $40,000, give them 10, 15, or $4,000. Like, I'd rather invest my money in other wealth building activities or things that I get pleasure out of than making a donation to the IRS, because basically that's what you're doing when you overpay in taxes. You're making a donation to the IRS.
Yeah, that's wild. I hadn't heard her say that quote, but I know it's real because I
Mhm,
worked with somebody that was referred this year, grossing multiple seven figures.
mhm.
And they told me when we switch our entity type, like basically the way their money's coming in, they should be accrual basis. But they
Right,
hadn't switched yet because they hadn't switched the entity type. And I was like, number one, you can do accrual based on Schedule C.
right.
Number two, you just told me how much money you make. All that's flowing through a Schedule C. And
Yes,
I like saw the actual return and I was like,
yes. If it wasn't her, and I apologize if I misquoted somebody, if it wasn't her, it's still plenty other people
mm-hmm.
doing the exact same thing. And
Yeah,
some
I
people
was,
think that once they change entities, the S corp is the end all be all, and it's not. Like you still have other tax strategies beyond the S corp. Social media got you thinking. All you got to do is elect to be a S corp and just write off everything. So they went from just set up a LLC and deduct your whole life to set up a S corp and write off everything. So
Yeah, content creators did really well last year in 2024 because they got spanked with some big tax bills. And I was in a content creator accountability group. I just had to be quiet sometimes and stuff like, oh, this year I'm writing this off this year. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
is this the same as knowing how to do CPR and not performing it when you see somebody? Because I was like, y'all, you can't do that.
Spoken up in different spaces before and they come at you. So I'd be like, have at it. Y'all know, have at it. So I don't always speak up. I share in groups and places where I'm welcomed.
Yeah.
Well,
Look, but if you
you did this, or somebody said you could do this. Well, go to so and so.
yeah, if you get audited, just remember my handle is at America's favorite
Right.
EA. Okay.
I'm here to help with the cleanup.
Oh, sweet Jesus. So, going back a little bit, the reason I asked that, I like to highlight the different services people either offer in their firm or don't offer in their firm because going back to being biased, I'm biased. I think everybody should do representation services. Like you went through the trouble of getting the EA credential, you have the authority, why not? But it's okay if you don't.
Right.
It's okay if you don't have the confidence to do it and you're not doing it because that's probably better off for the taxpayer so you don't mess anything up even more.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I will not do bookkeeping. That's okay. That's okay. The tax planning to the level that you're talking about, I won't do that just because, as you mentioned, having a lot to juggle. And if somebody doesn't have a full team, I don't think people realize that when you offer different types of services, yes, they're all within the tax realm.
Right.
However, they're going to have different types of workflows and
Right.
processes because we're dealing with somebody's financial story at different parts of the story.
Absolutely. And for me, I just found myself more productive once I narrowed it down to like tax. I found myself more productive, more happy, and just enjoying, what I'm doing versus trying to be the jack of all trades, trying to be the one-stop shop. Because people told me they want a one-stop shop. Well, sometimes you're not getting the best, at a one-stop shop. It's like going to Walmart versus going to a specific shoe store. Like
Mm-hmm.
one-stop shop doesn't always work.
Yes, and that's why I try to explain to people too, tax professionals and taxpayers. Is the taxpayer, if you have a one stop shop with somebody who's solo dolo, that might not work because they may have the best intentions, but that second set of eyes
Mm-hmm.
is so important. And you hire an expert because you don't trust your own eyes.
Mm-hmm.
So I need at least
Right.
two
And
sets of eyeballs.
team. I had a bookkeeper and a tax professional, but me, I have to sign off on everything. My name goes on everything. So I'm reviewing, everything that comes across my desk before it gets to the client. And it was a lot.
Yeah, and same, I'll give the, because you just took it right to the tax professional. If it's your firm, it's your responsibility. You
Absolutely.
know, I had a boo boo with somebody that was working for me, and I was like, never again,
Yeah,
never
same.
again. And I was going back through that stuff, and what had happened was I had too much on my plate. So even though, like, yes, I paid them, I'm trusting them to be able to handle this, it still ultimately fell back on me. So understanding, like, when you just gotta say no. If I want to make more money, raise your prices because
That's, ooh, people get mad when you say raise them prices though.
you gotta be ready for the fallout.
That's it.
Um, so again, Karitsa, I appreciate you being here. Before you leave, I do want to ask you one last question. Depending on how you answer it, might have a follow up. For you, when you look back over this journey of being an enrolled agent, if there was one thing that you could change in your journey, what would that one thing be?
If I could change one thing. Um, That's a good question. I feel like the journey is what brought me here. Like it was all a learning lesson.
Mhm.
Because I can't say I didn't know what I liked versus what I didn't like without going through, the
Yes.
process. Um, I think okay, so one thing I think I would have changed, I wouldn't have left my job so quick. Because I've been
Really?
full time since 2019. So my plan was to sell houses and do taxes, do taxes and sell houses. January through April, do taxes. Then sell houses May through December. That was my plan. But we all know that God laughs at our plans, right? Because I quit my job in July of 2019, and that year went perfectly as planned. But then COVID hit in 2020, March of 2020, and I had a tax business and I had real estate. Both industries took off, like they were doing really well. And it was like,
Mhm.
I can't, halfway do this. I chose to focus on the tax because, like you say, those tax law changes was coming in nonstop, and you had to stay on top of it. You had the EIDLs, the PPPs. We had so many QuickBooks cleanups and stuff because people didn't have the financial reports and the things that they needed to submit the PPP application legally. so and
That
so,
part.
keyword legally. And so that's what, and I knew that taxes was my first love. So I went with the tax side, and I really haven't looked back.
Awesome. Yeah, I've heard the reverse. We've heard, me and the listeners, we've heard the reverse. People say they would have jumped out there quicker. You're like, no, not for me.
Mm-mm. No, not me. Because
So go
I
ahead.
just think that it's so much to learn. Now, the benefit to that was I was able to show up and take the CEs and stuff like that. But at the same time, initially my numbers didn't replace my job income. So you got to take all
Mhm.
things into consideration when you're considering, like jumping out there. I was single mother, 2 kids. So it was like I risked a whole lot jumping out there. No regrets, but it had its challenges, and like I said, I risked a lot doing that.
I'm gonna let you go, but you just gave me something.
Okay.
You said didn't replace your job income, and I don't have any insider information here. If I do, I forgot. So it's me genuinely asking or requesting that you speak to this for the people who are looking at numbers and like, okay, if I make this much, it's the same as my job income.
Mm-hmm.
The mistake that I see is, let's say somebody wants to replace a $70,000 salary, and they
Mm-hmm.
think they only have to make $70,000 gross in their business.
Your W-2 salary is not the same as self-employed income. A $70,000 W-2 income is, I would say, significantly more than $70,000 in business income, simply because you are paying for all of your expenses out of that business income. So $70,000 might end up being 25 when you're done covering all your business expenses.
Amen. I've seen people do it over and over again. Well, I made 50
Mhm.
here, so I'm going to do 65. And it's like, you don't got to pay rent. You got a sugar daddy.
Right.
You got a rich uncle. What's
Exactly.
going on here? Because yeah, you have to account for expenses. Somebody may listen to that and just clutch their pearls. You can do this pretty slim.
Yeah.
You can do it remotely. You don't have to have a lot of overhead, but
Yeah.
there are expenses, especially take into consideration you are running this like a business. You have
Right.
to pay for insurance.
And
You,
my guilty pleasure is I want to have the top of the line everything. Like, I want to have the best systems and processes so that my clients can have the best experience. No, I might not have, rent being a virtual office, but my tax software is more than the average tax software. My
Yes,
CRM
it is.
is,
Yes, it is, y'all.
look, that's insider information right there.
I'm just confirming so they know. Yes, it is. Ain't nothing
So
average about it.
exactly. And so, I mean, just having the top of the line systems and processes makes it a better experience for my clients overall. There's less errors, or minimal errors. I mean, we're human, so you got the human error factor, but just making sure that the clients have a smooth process and that it's easy for them to upload their documents, complete the organizer. They don't have to go from here to there and everywhere, just to get things done, to access me and process a return. So, like, that's important. So you might not have, a certain type of overhead, but depending on your systems and processes, those things aren't cheap. Most the good ones are not cheap.
Yeah, touche. Well, thank you for that. Again, thank you so much for joining me. If somebody listening to this wanted to follow you, connect with you on social media, where can they find you?
They can find me on Facebook as Karitsa Kerns. They can find me on Instagram as Karitsa K underscore EA. And they can find me on LinkedIn as Karitsa Kerns.
Cool beans. And for the people who are watching this, not just listening to it, we do have that scrolling across the bottom of the screen. For our people who are listening, and maybe you're multitasking right now, I'll be sure that we have it in the show notes. If you've listened to Chris's journey, you said, hey, I think that I can do that too, but I may need a little help. I want to invite you to join my email list. You can join by going to www.americasfavoriteea.com. You can get your How to Start an EA Firm checklist and join the free community. But if you need a little more hand holding and help, you can also join the mentorship program. That is it for this episode. I will see you all next Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern.